Hi, I'm Yakupin from the Rappler Lifestyle section. You're watching Rappler, and in a few seconds, you'll be watching my interview with someone you likely know if you're on Twitter. Even if you're not, you might know her because her tweets go viral across all platforms all the time. Her name is Frankie Pangilinan. She's a 19-year-old student, singer, songwriter. She's also the daughter of Senator Kiko Pangilinan and the country's megastar, Sharon Cuneta. Today on Rappler, we'll be talking about her activism, how at 11 she took notes from the Corona impeachment trial, her music, and how she's using her platform the best way she can. Now, this interview was pre-recorded, but if you have questions, comments, as long as they're not mean, you can send them my way. I'm at Bekopin on Twitter. You can tweet Rappler at rappler.com, and you can even tweet Kaki. She's at KakiP83 on Twitter. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as we did.
So, kamusta? How have you been?
I weirdly tired, like not in necessarily the physical sense, but more of like the, I guess, mentally emotional and emotionally, like that sense. And the thing about that is it does transfer onto the physical, obviously, like after a lot of, but at the same time, it's like, because um ba- basically I got here March, like right before the lockdown started, and I didn't leave my house for like 3 months. And then dad drove us up to the farm for
Mm-hmm.
like 4 hours, and
So
then we came
finally,
back.
fresh air.
Like, but that's it. Like just that one day. That like after 3 months, sakto, the day after, dad drove us up to the farm and then we stayed there for 4 hours and then came home. So it's like, you know what I mean. So it's like it's such a privilege to be able to socially distance to like that extent.
For sure.
But I can't lie and say it hasn't taken a toll also on my mental health. But like, yeah.
No.
But obviously, it's such a blessing to be able to do that. So.
Yeah. I think because we're so used to interacting with so many people every day of our life. So it's shocking, na biglang
Yeah.
family. I mean, we love our families, but it's just shocking that every day sila lang yung nakakita mo or
Yeah, exactly.
But of course, we go straight to the hot issue. I don't know if it's even right to call it that, but you're not a stranger to going viral, but recently, okay, just walk me through, like, how did you react when you first saw that graphic from the Lukban, if I'm right?
Yeah.
Lukban police?
I believe it was the Lukban police. I
When you
think
saw
that
that.
like as soon as it was Rappler nga, diba? And like as
Yeah.
soon as I saw it, I was just kind of like, this is so. It was so weird. I think that it was specifically alarming because it's a government organization. You know what I mean? Like it's an official like organization. Like that's a police station that's saying that is the authorities, diba? Like if it was, because I've seen a lot of like, obviously you see like stray comments from like conservative Pinoys and things like that, diba? Like we can't help that naman when it's like private citizens who like have those opinions. But I think what alarmed me the most about it was that it's like it was, you go there because those are the authorities, right? It's like you go there to feel safe and to feel secure. And so I think that it was just especially alarming, yun nga, because like the very institution that was like like tasked to keep us safe is exactly what kind of turned it around and like blamed the victims.
Right.
And I was like, that's, it's like that's not okay. And it was just like, what? Because obviously also we see a lot of, I feel like we're also heavily influenced a lot on social media by like Western like news and things like that, right? Like you can't help that, like Western news. And it's like especially me, like going to college in New York for a semester or two, and almost two because we had to come back.
Miss Rona had different plans.
So it's like Miss Rona had different plans. But like, yeah, so I think that for me it was like, it was really, that was the most striking thing that like really kind of like I woke up to when I ended up studying there. It was just that how the culture is so shaped by the development of like the country itself. Like obviously, and I mean like I mean that even in the most shallow sense. Like even my friends there, when I was telling them I have to go home, like I have to pack up, I have to go home because COVID was like rapidly increasing. As soon as there was one case in New York, I already knew, because no one can socially distance in New York. There aren't cars, people walk everywhere.
Right.
People walk everywhere. It's all like, I would take the train like every week and stuff like that. And it's just like, there's nowhere to go. Like you can't socially distance in New York. It's just not possible. And so I was like, I need to go home now because stuff's gonna happen, especially in our third world country. Like it's gonna lock down and stuff like that. And I was like, if I'm gonna go home anyway, like because there were like work things also that I had to go home. I just kind of pushed back my spring break a couple weeks, so it's not like it was suddenly and I was like demanding like I have to go. But like yeah,
Mhm.
with this it was just. But for me it was like this is a crisis and I have to abort, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
feel like Pinoys are so used to that. It's like when Taal erupted, it was like no school and no one was like going off about like why are they canceling classes, stuff like that. But then like a bunch of my friends in the States were all like, why are they canceling? Like I've never had like school canceled. Like it was so weird for them to be in
Right.
a crisis. And then I realized it's because they're so used to having a system that more often than not works for them.
Right.
Whereas here it's like, it's kind of like, oh well, if like the justice system takes so long, or like it's like every facet of our established institutions, they're we're all kind of like accepting or more tolerant when they don't function for us.
Right.
And I
Right.
feel like to a certain extent that makes Pinoys very adaptable, but then also that's a problem because then what happens is we tend to it's easier for people who want to abuse that power to do so. And it's it was like this whole like what?
Right.
Sorry if I got so deep real quick.
No, kasi, oo nga, that's a good point. Because
Yeah.
parang, when we see something wrong, it's not that alarming. Kasi parang, nangyayari naman talaga yan.
Yeah.
May
By the way,
konting
disclaimer, this looks like Starbucks. I did not buy Starbucks. This is just the reusable hard plastic cup from Starbucks that looks like. I just have to disclaim that right away because I don't want people to be like she bought Starbucks.
you,
No, no, no. It's just it's Copico inside. I'm very like it's my favorite now. Copico Blanca is like my favorite.
we
So
will talk about internet culture in a bit, but so you saw
mm-hmm.
that graphic about what the police in Lukban posted on Facebook, of course, after they issued a sort of apology. It wasn't really an apology. Medyo nag-double down.
They like, deleted it though. Yeah. They
Yeah,
deleted
pero
it though,
medyo
right? Like
nag-double down yung police chief. And then, so you tweeted. And then I think it was the next morning, or a few days after, right? Or the
yeah.
morning
No,
after.
I think it was when I retweeted that. So that kind of some people like that. So like it kind of went around, and then I think later that night he said
Right.
something, but I wasn't online anymore. Like I go offline more now because I'm like tense and I'm like scared. But yeah, okay.
Right. How did you react? Like, first of all, yung account niya, no shade to him, but I mean, I don't mean anything by this, but his account doesn't come off as an official account right away. Like, you have to
Yeah.
click through it and verify that it's actually him. So how did you react when you found out that Ben Tulfo had tweeted at you and correcting
I
you?
found out the next morning. Yeah, I found out the next morning, and I had to be like, wait, because that's the thing. It was like it was so weird that it was targeted. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because
Right.
clearly there were so many people who shared my perspective on it, and there were so many, and I felt like no, and that's not even a thing. To me, it's like it wasn't even like my opinion that I was providing. I feel like that's just right and wrong, right? It's like
Right.
don't blame the victim. Like to me, that's
Right.
already like moral. That's like you
Right.
know
Right.
and so it was so weird to be singled out on like a matter of principle like that. I was like wait, because I'm not the only one who thinks like this, right? Like I was like I thought that this should be like the widely accepted thing, because that especially coming from a public figure, I think that's what distressed me the most about it. It was because I know for a fact that there's so many, again, like just being influenced by like Western social media and things like that, there's so like if a public figure tweeted something to that effect or said exactly what he said in like on like an international scale, that's just unacceptable.
For sure.
And so it was so weird for me that it was so brave. He
Right.
was like, and the fact that he was like Iha, like he
Yeah,
singled
the
me out
tone,
there.
the tone that he used, I think, was
Yeah,
it was
it,
even jarring for me. Diba? Na
yeah, because
parang ganun.
it was like it's like you're small little girl, like you don't know what you're talking about. But to me, it was like, no, the point is this is again, it wasn't like I was just providing like an opinion. To me, that should be it.
Right.
Sorry for clapping my hands. Oh my god.
It's
But
fine.
yeah.
It's fine. But I think you also mentioned this, but I think what's more disturbing is his opinion is not, it's not a minority opinion. You
Yeah.
have a lot of people agreeing with him, amplifying his message. He also amplifies it.
Exactly.
Was it shocking to you that this is still a prevailing mindset
Yeah.
in the Philippines? Na parang paulit-ulit. You have so many people talking about the rape culture, correcting people patiently, sometimes impatiently, na parang hindi, ganito kasi yun. Ito yung kailangan mo ito yung kailangan mong magets, di ba? And you have a lot of people, some of them influential, as you mentioned, with a huge audience, not just online audience. You're also talking about traditional media na audience dito. Pero
I know.
does it surprise you that this mode of thinking still persists in the Philippines?
It's kind of like disappointed but not surprised, you know, because I was surprised that he was so brave about it. That's what I was surprised about. But the thing is, like, like, I think that fundamentally Pinoys are still quite conservative. Like, that's, you know what I mean, like, that's a common known fact. And it's very funny because I think that's another realization that I had a couple years ago. I was like, the Filipino brand of feminism is very different. It has to be very different. Because that's the thing, right? We don't really have like a gender gap in terms of like work and like pay and things like that. We've had 2 female presidents, and you know, like, we don't have the same. It's not the same struggle. And like, obviously, growing up being like a Tumblr kid, you know what I mean? Like, everything I saw again, everything I saw again was like primarily like international, like wave feminism and stuff like that. When it was like, you know, so I was very much charged and like everything when I was like 13, 14. I was very much like equal pay and things like that, without really realizing, you know, contextually, that's not the biggest thing that we should be fighting for right now, right? It's like in the Philippines, that's the thing. I think a lot of people also, some people who are like younger than me especially, and you know, I'm by no means an expert at all, but I'm just saying that, like, I've noticed that a trend among people, especially those who are like younger than me, like the ones who are kind of like woke on Twitter and stuff like that. Like, that's really admirable. But then I realized that there's really a wide discrepancy between these issues and how they're applied internationally and how they're applied within our context. Because as a third world country, you simply can't expect everyone to be as socially aware and as like social, you know what I mean, as social, because that's the thing, right? All those countries, developed countries, can worry about social issues more because they don't, again, it's like the hierarchy of needs, right? Our biggest problem is poverty. Our biggest problem is poverty, and our biggest problem is, like, you know, how can we expect Filipinos to be constantly socially aware to the highest extent when they're more probably like worrying about their next meal? Like, their biggest worry is their next meal. It's not, am I being politically correct? You know what I mean? And things like that. Because I think there was some news also a couple of years ago where like a security guard was really, really attacked for misgendering a transgender person. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, right? Sorry, I'm just recalling. I haven't read it recently or anything, but I just remember in that context, I was like, that is really upsetting. Like, 100%, that's such a valid, you know. But at the same time, we can't expect that of Pinoys yet at this point, you know, to have that like a cultural awakening, and social cultural awakening. We can't expect that of them constantly. Like, we need to have a certain amount of patience and more patience and more compassion, because yun nga, it's like, do you think the Kuya security guard who's working there, like on the shift at the mall, has time to like educate himself and has time to like read up on these issues and really care when he's probably just caring about feeding his family, you know? Like,
or at the very least, you should focus on the institution, I guess, that should have helped him understand these things.
Exactly.
Diba? Hindi sa individual lang yung kasalanan dapat.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? And so that's the thing. It's like, there's a lot of people who've been messaging me just going like, so like, why don't you walk out naked, and like, why don't you like do these things and stuff like that? And I'm just like, dude, the point is not that. The point is that girls, no matter what we wear, we're already scared, right? And so like, I get that. Like, coming from my mom, for example, when she tells me like, anak, like, cover up muna, because it's like a, you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't mean it as like a, it's your fault if you get assaulted, but she just means it as like a protective mom, being like, because I know that if I had a daughter, for example, and if I was like taking her around, I wouldn't like get mad at her, but I'd be like, okay, like, on the side of caution, right? Because that's the truth. That's what it is at this point. But my point is, let's stop blaming the victims. Let's start teaching people like more, you know what I mean? Like, let's change it now, in other words, because that's the thing. He kept saying also, I think there was a follow-up comment where Mr. Tulfo said like, it's all about prevention, not solution. And that really bothered me, because I was kind of like, wait. I think that the saying is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? That's the
Right.
saying. Like,
Yeah.
not once have I ever heard anyone say it's all about prevention, not solution. That
Right.
applies to things like COVID. You know what I mean? That doesn't apply to social issues. Social issues, the solution is preventing it at its like that. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, well, if you believe that, then let's just teach people not to rape, right? Isn't
Right.
that, you know,
It should be
that would be the solution? Yeah.
it should be the logical, and it's an easier conclusion actually if you think about it, diba? Parang
Yeah.
if you start early, like teaching not just young boys but young girls as well, na okay, hindi, it's not a victim's fault, or it's not a woman's fault,
Yeah.
or even a man's fault na may mangyari sa kanila dahil sa, like, because of what they wear. So, but
Yeah.
also I wonder, because you also mentioned this, because you are your generation, as much as I would hate to admit this, we are from different generations. Yours, like, you grew up with the internet already, like, full there, set up.
Yeah.
So kami, naabutin pa namin yung dial-up era. Pero parang, you guys grew up in a very, like, it was already international. Like, it was
Yeah.
easier to get information from different countries, to open your eyes to different, like, yeah, to feminism, for example, in the West. What was the process for you naman? Yun nga, you talk about it, na parang, okay, you learn about this, okay, ito feminism in the West, whatever. Pagbalik mo dito sa Pilipinas, okay, wait lang. This is not pala, it's not directly reflective of the reality of my country. So how do you, like, what is the process for you specifically?
I think that I mean, obviously having dad in the house is a big help.
I would imagine.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, like that's a huge help, because I think that the thing about that is that it influenced my childhood significantly, right? Because I think a lot of people think that, like, I mean, yes, like, I did in fact grow up in a bubble. Like, let's be real. I grew up in a privileged bubble, okay? But I mean, that's a thing, right? It's like people won't really, I can't really attest to this because I haven't necessarily been like, but I feel like I don't, okay, this is weird. Wait. I feel like I've been in this sort of, middle. Not because it's like I belong to the more privileged side of the Philippines, right? Obviously. And I feel like, but the thing is, because of my dad and because of my mom being like who they are, and like because of their principles, it was always ingrained in us as kids so hard to like be socially aware, you know, to a certain extent. Like every single time, like I still hear their voice in the back of my head, like and growing up it was kind of like, that's annoying because when you're a kid you just kind of want to enjoy everything, you know what I mean? But like we literally couldn't, like, you know, it's like I had to save up for like my first guitar, and I had to sell banana Q in the Senate, which, like, that sounds funny, right?
Wait. You sold banana Q in the Senate?
Yes.
Did you like go room to room?
Yeah, I kind of knocked on the door and I was like just offering it to everyone. I went into the session hall and I was just small, and my dad was just like, just humor her, right? Because like I was like going around, because I set up a lemonade stand at home. And the thing about that is, in our village naman, it wasn't really like a bunch of people at the time. It wasn't like a bunch of people were like walking all the time, you know what I mean? So it's like the people who bought from my lemonade stand were like my two friends from like across the street, and then like you know, so I was standing there, I wrote the sign, I was like, lemonade 10 pesos, you know, I made it all myself and stuff. And it's like, but you know what I mean, it's like small childhood experiences like that I know a lot of my friends who belong around the same like privileged class, they didn't have those experiences. Like they didn't have, like, you know, like to this day, there's a sign on my door that my dad literally just put up like a couple weeks ago. He was like, turn off the lights, please. Because he says, I have a habit of leaving my lamp on. And he was like, you can leave your lamp on when you start paying the electric bills. And then he'll show us everything, right? He'll show us like that stuff. He'll be like, do you know how much this costs? Like, do you know? And everything. And it's like, to this day, I still have like my sukis, yung mga suki ko sa palengke and stuff like that. Because it's like, you know, growing up, again, dad would take us to the wet market like every week. And it's like, you know, it's stuff like that I feel like people don't think, and I don't blame them. Like, you know what I mean? I don't blame them at all, because I wouldn't think that I didn't realize until I went to an international school for like high school that I was like, oh, you know, I was kind of like, this isn't, it's not really normal for parents to be taking their kids around like that. Like, you know, my friends were kind of being like my friends and I went to Divisoria or something for like a school trip and everything like that. And I was fairly comfortable.
Yeah.
And they were just kind of like, you know what I mean? Yeah, and they were just kind of like, wait, like what's going on and stuff like that. And like I was the one who like that's the thing also. It's like I'm the only one among all my friends who's not that. I'm Inglesera, okay, let's get that straight. But I'm not that Inglesera. Like you know what I mean? I can haggle. I can like you know what I like because now growing up again, Dad would insist that we have to play pretend and it has to be Tagalog. You have to be speaking Filipino the whole time. And it's so funny like those things like that I don't think people understand. My dad was so praning that we were growing up in this bubble, you know. My
Right.
parents were so like they were so scared that we were growing up in this bubble that they like every single day. And again, as a kid it was kind of like annoying like what's going on, but now it's just like no, if they didn't do that I would be so much more dense, you know. Like
Have you ever talked to
I
your
would
parents about that? Like, parang, was it a super conscious decision talaga on their, like, every day, did they tell themselves na, okay, kailangan yung mga anak namin, medyo grounded, kahit papano, alam
yeah.
mo yun?
No,
Was
it
it,
really was. Like that's the thing. And like I think it was more for my dad because my mom was kind of like a little more like okay because my mom um that's the thing though that people I tend to overlook because they think that it's like oh my mom didn't get any money either from her parents. Like she everything that she has she worked her butt off for. You know
right,
what I mean? And it's like my dad
she
also
continues to do
came
that?
from like a yeah, my dad came from like a less privileged background. Also, he had 8 siblings. They were 9 in the house, and like you know what I mean. Like everything had to be shared and stuff. So like to a certain extent, for both of them, it was kind of like a conscious. It definitely was a conscious decision. They were like, we're not gonna let our kids, especially because yun nga, because also of their jobs and stuff, right? It's like thank God like that dad was able because of dad's position. It's like I've gone to so many places in the Philippines. Just a few weeks ago, I was like I really, really missed Iloilo for some reason. Like I woke up and I was like, I miss Iloilo so much. Like I just want the batchoy. Like you know what I mean? I was like, I was imagining the trees are so. I was just, I just want to be in Iloilo right now, and I was like really upset. And then I was texting my friends about it, and they were like, "Why? What's it like?" And I was like, "Oh my God, you've never been to Iloilo." Like you know what I mean? Things like that, right? And then I was like, I also miss Davao. I miss Pampanga. And I miss because going on like the campaign trails. It's like my dad's political career, his national political career, is as old as me. Did you know
Eh,
that?
yeah, oo nga,
Yeah,
no.
it's as old as me. It's so funny.
Which
So
leads me
that's why.
to the question though, like,
Yeah,
at which, kasi you grew up, ito na yung reality, di ba, for you. When
yeah.
did you realize na parang, okay, not everyone is a father who's a senator, or like, not everyone's
Oh, from no,
mother
that's the
is,
thing. From the get go. From the get
oh,
go, right?
okay.
Because they would again they would tell us that like really evenly. Not gonna lie, in preschool I had my moments where it was like, you know, like whatever because I thought it was like cool or whatever. But like
Mhm.
that's still my most embarrassing moment. Like to this day, I was like, I was 6, and it still haunts me because they asked, they were like, "What do your parents do?" And I like stood up really proudly, and I was like, "My mom is," and I was like, "No!" Like to this day, I'm like, "You're so kapal, enough!" Like no,
No,
I was
but
only 6, but
were your classmates impressed, or did they not care?
I think they cared. A couple of them cared because again, I didn't at that point. I didn't go to an international school yet.
Oh,
Like I
right,
went to
right.
yeah. So like I was like yung parang you know what I mean. And then no, that's the thing. And then when I moved to an international school, like none of them really knew. So it had its like good balances, you know what I
I
mean? Because
know.
none of them really knew who my mom was. So I
Right.
suddenly it like became like a ano, and then they found out, and then it became like a joke. Every time we go on a field trip and stuff, they just start going anak ni, and I'd be like, oh my god, like run, and then they have to get like a talk from the principal, like that's a safety.
Oh my
But
God.
it's stupid things like that, right? It's really like I don't it's so weird for me to talk about. Like I get guilty just talking about it, but it's like something that has it's weird. I'm trying to find the balance of like it's something that has to be acknowledged, but also it's not about that.
Right,
Like
right. No,
you
but I
know
think it's
like fund
important for you to tell people also kasi parang to so people understand where you're coming from. Kasi 'di ba parang
yeah, I
baka
guess.
okay, I listed this down in the questions, but like I think a lot of people remember you as a little girl, like from
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah, for sure.
from commercials or from like when your mom show would air sulpot ka bigla. Parang mo yun, parang so perhaps for some older people, parang oh wow, you're 19, she's opinionated, like she's not afraid to. And that brings me to another question. Kasi parang okay, I don't wanna sound like I'm belittling the children of politicians as well, other kids
Mhm.
of other politicians. Pero parang it's not usual, perhaps, for them to be very opinionated for many
Yeah.
reasons. Baka takot mabash,
Yeah.
takot sa scrutiny. Also, syempre, they have to think about the careers of their parents as well, the political ties.
Mhm.
But you have never shied away from, like, telling it as it is, or expressing how you feel about a certain issue. Well, siguro mas madali din because your dad's one of the two senators who voted against.
Yeah.
I
No, that's the thing, right?
God,
I
right?
think about that so often. I'm like, I literally was sitting down. Miel and I were sitting down at the
Yeah.
dinner table, like after dinner, when like dad's having his wine and I'll have like a glass, and then mom is like, Mom can't drink. Mom can't drink. She has one sip and she's gone. She's gone. She'll have one sip of like soju and she
Oh, no.
cannot. Like, she's like, I'm warm, I'm getting rashes, and then she'll like go to bed. So like it was like me and my dad and Miel at the table. And I was just kind of looking at my dad and I was like, wow.
Diba?
I was like,
No, it's true though.
I was like, how? No, but that's why I kind of pity, like, not naman pity. I don't want to say naman like, no, wako sa'yo or something like
Yeah.
that, diba? But it's like, I kind of feel like, I do kind of feel bad for like the kids of like politicians who, especially those with like notorious track records for
Right.
like,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know how I could have handled that growing up, because it's like, that's your standard of right and wrong, right? That's your parent. Like,
Yeah.
that is your first teacher.
Right.
Like, he's like, you know, and it's like, from there on out, like, if my dad was like, if my dad was corrupt, if my dad was like a plunderer, you know, to me, I'm like, I couldn't take him seriously ever. He'd like ground me and I'd be like, well, you stole money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, why should I listen to you? Like, you know, and it's like, he's never not given me a reason to listen to him. Is that grammatically correct? He's
Which
never
makes it
not.
harder for you.
He's never not given me a reason to not listen to him.
Right. Let's
That's a triple
assume na tama
negation.
yun. We'll just assume na tama
Okay.
yun. But
Just,
yeah, okay. But okay, so syempre lahat ng tao, I guess sa beginning people would call you Frankie because well, it's your name, but parang
yeah.
yun yung first intro mo talaga sa public sphere, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Ngayon, I would assert na for a certain subset of the internet population, they might know your dad as the father of Frankie Pangilinan. Alam mo yun?
Oh my God, that's so, no naman.
No, I would argue maybe for the younger kids, right? For the maybe. But yeah, but okay, zoning into that, parang how have you been handling the attention or yung parang you just, even if you tweet like non-important things, like anyway, parang just random thoughts.
Because it's my Twitter. That's the thing. Also, I kind of want to bring it back to that because I'm like, guys, I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not constantly spewing this kind of content. Like, I'm sorry if you follow me.
Twitter.
Yeah,
Twitter
especially because the Formula One season is coming up now.
Oh no.
And like the only reason that's why the only reason I've been quiet about it is because the season was postponed because of COVID. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, but that's my favorite sport. Like if you scroll down far enough on my account, it's essentially a fan account. And like, you know, it's just me being like what I'm interested in and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, it's so weird to me now that there's like so many people. That's the thing. Before my mom's concert thing, her online concert, before that, I didn't even have 100K followers. And it's so weird for me. Like, I don't even check anymore. Like, I had to be told yesterday, like, you have 165. And I was like, it's so scary because I feel like suddenly there's so many people who are listening. You know what I mean?
Right,
and it's so weird because then there are also people who are being like, well, what have you done? And I'm like, I don't know what I've done. Like, you know, it's like, that's the truth. It's like, I can't argue with you because I haven't, like, I'm just working on my stuff, right? Like, I just started working because I have to postpone college for now. Yeah. So like, I just like, so I'm working at home. I'm going to stay here for like another year. And it's like, I just started working. So for me to be like, so for people to be like, well, what have you done for this? Like, what even are you? And I'm just like,
same.
I have nothing to show for myself yet. You know, it's like, I have nothing to show for myself yet. So I completely understand you. I'm like,
you're 19, like at 19.
I don't know what other thing
I was doing when I was 19. I also feel like sometimes people have too high an expectation of you. I mean, parang
it's either too high or too low. It's so funny to me because it's like, no, it's so funny to me because it's either, you know, the questions, the bashing questions are either like, anong ambag mo, or like what the hell have you done like for your country, or like what who are you even, right? Like you're just like whatever like this. It's either that or you're only 19 and you don't know what you're talking about yet.
Right.
Like maybe like experience life first. And I'm like, well, you like choose one.
Right,
Choose a
right,
lane.
for sure.
Okay,
No,
like,
and I think, but to be serious about that, I feel that's very unfair for people to dismiss you just because you're 19, which is what Tulfo did. Kasi parang
it's very kind, thank you.
it's also a problematic mindset among a lot of Filipinos. I feel na porket bata, it's as if your age diminishes your opinion or
Yeah.
your right to express an opinion. Sabi nga, I forget who said this specifically in the context of, I think it was Catherine Bernardo actually who said this, na parang,
I
parang
love her. I love her.
kids, not kids, but young adults should be speaking up. Kasi nga naman,
Yeah.
the legislation that's being passed now, the policies that are being passed now, affects you guys. Because
Yeah, exactly.
breaking news, kayo naman yung mamamalagi dito in 10 to 20
Yeah, that's the
years.
thing, right? And it's like, say what you want. At the end of the day, we're inheriting this country. You
Right.
know? It's like, no matter how much you attack us.
Right. We are what wala
So,
kayong
like, I'm
choice.
like 20
Ito
years
na yun.
from now, bro. Like,
Ito na yun.
like 20 years from now, what?
But how do you handle that though? Na parang, okay, on the flip side, you have people dismissing you just because you're 19, but you also have people na, I saw this discussion na parang may Twitter debate on Mockingjay. First of all, mali yun, kasi so if you read the books, the Mockingjay is a manufactured symbol of a corrupt system. But anyway, not to geek out over that, but like, how does it feel when people seem to elevate you and put you on a pedestal naman? Parang baliktad naman. Kung parang ito naman
It's so
over-acknowledged naman.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, right? I'm just kind of like, I'm really truly not doing anything special. Like, I feel like, but I feel like that's why people, I guess, some people like to listen, right? It's because I tend to be less filtered on social media platforms. Like, I always promised myself, since day one, I promised myself that I was going to be honest, because what's the point? You know? It's like growing up, like, I literally, and that's the thing, it's so weird, because to me, it's like, again, a few, like last month or something like that, like while in the midst of quarantine, my mom showed me this video of like the Sharon Cuneta show, like 3 days after I was born or something. And like they came to the house and like,
Oh my god.
oh, they came to the house and like I looked like a little worm, like in like a blanket, and like apparently everyone wanted to see me or something like that. Like they were all like freaking out because, and I was like, that looks like an ood, like straight up ood yan. So I was just like, you know, but like that's the kind of thing, right? That it's so weird to me because I'm like, I it, how do I put this? Yun nga, it's like it's either they're elevating me naman too high, like past beyond like the, because that's the thing, right? This should be normal. Like that's all I'm saying. This should be normal. It's either that or they're putting me down for that.
Right.
Like they're putting me down for being
People
like,
can't
I'm like,
decide.
guys, this is so like, I'm like, this is so confusing. Like, can I just be like a person? Like, can we just normalize like being normal? Like I'm literally like, you know what I mean? But like I totally get what that whole discussion was about though, because I don't think I saw anyone calling me the Mockingjay before that, to be honest. Like to be honest,
Right.
I just, you know what I mean, and I was kind of like confused by that because not like it wasn't like a discussion thing, you know what I mean. And like with Iha Ako happening, that wasn't me that made that. Like I said it once, but like that's the stories of the women is what catapulted that forward, right? I wasn't even brave enough to share my own story yet, but and like I'm still mustering up the courage, but it's like I just said that I gave the wording and then that was it, you know what I mean. Like that wasn't me at all. And so it was just, it feels really strange to like it's like every single move natuloy that I make online, it's gonna be overanalyzed, I feel. And you know what I mean, to that extent, because that's the thing, like, you know, people now are like, wow, why are you so vocal like now, like suddenly, and I'm like, if you look far enough, I wasn't, this is just me again, right? It's like I've been saying stuff like that. I've been on Twitter since 2020 what 16, even though it was just for like promo stuff, like my parents didn't really let me use it till I was 16. And I was just like, if you, no, that's the thing, that's the other thing I'm so thankful for. They didn't let us get.
Oh
They're
my
not
God.
letting. Yeah.
That's so smart of them though. Because I feel so
Yeah.
bad for younger people now. Because like, my God, at 15 I was dumb. Like I'm still
Yeah.
dumb now
Yeah.
sometimes, but like at 15,
Yeah.
you don't you're less careful about what you say
Yeah.
in public and
Exactly.
online. So delikado din if
No,
you're
but I mean,
exposed
at the same
to.
time, like I was very thankful because I feel like at that point I was already quite like aware, right? But like
Right.
obviously it's just like the safeguard. Like I look at my little sister, she's 15. We can have discussions about this. Like she
Right.
believes in the same things I do. In fact, I'm kind of scared for when she gets social media because she's a lot more tapang than I am. She's a lot more. She's less.
Oh,
No, she's less. How do I put this? She's more sensitive,
okay.
but more fiery.
Oh,
So yeah,
oh, that will be interesting. The day she's
love her,
allowed to
love
go
her.
online
I
on
know
social media.
she's I know, that's why I'm kind of like, sis, gotta handle that temper muna, okay? Like let's pull a rein on it. Let's not freak out first.
I think you've
Oh
tweeted
my
about
god.
this also, but have you ever gotten into trouble? Like, have your parents ever been like, wait lang, preno ka muna?
I mean, I think they just tell me like take it easy, but I've never like outright gotten into trouble because I think that's the thing, right? Because like being in this weird position, it's like this weird thing because had that was another constant thing growing up, right? It was like you have to behave, or you have like as a kid you have to behave because people are watching. You have to behave because it's not about you. Like that's the thing. Like they would always tell me it's not about you. It's about the fact that your parents are in these positions,
Right.
and like you know what I mean. Like if you behave, if you misbehave, if you thankfully apparently aside from a couple of really weird childhood anecdotes. No, a lot. I had a weird childhood. I was like very no. I was a weird child. I don't know how my parents raised me. I'm kind of like, if I had a child like me, I
Well,
would probably
you were
cry.
you
I'll make
were
you
the
point
kid
about
who
that
was
later.
selling banana Q in the Senate, so that's
Wait, no,
I
that's
would,
one. That's one. That's not even the weirdest
ah,
one.
okay,
There's
normal pa
also like
yun.
a no, like literally, that's like vaguely normal. I was like, no, but that's so funny because if you actually see it, it's so cute. I want to kind of compile it for my kids in the future. If you see like um Pinoy's inauguration, you can see my elbow on the official photo that was like released, like my little elbow there. I was like 9, and then also on CJ Corona's when he was being impeached. Like there's so many session like videos where you can see me there. I'm like tiny in like my round glasses and stuff like that, like in a dress. Like yeah, I have yet to find that because I know that there's so many videos. There's so much footage of
So
CJ Corona's
literally, you have
trial, right?
inserted
Obviously,
yourself in
yeah.
history several
No,
times.
like literally, like that. It's so funny to me because I'm just like, that is so funny. Like, what kid was there? You know what I mean? Like but that's what I'm saying, right? It's like, what kid cared about that stuff? I
Right.
literally have a tiny notebook here of my notes, my personal notes of CJ Corona's trial.
You took notes
Personal
from
notes.
the
I
impeachment?
took notes.
Why?
Yes,
How old were you?
because I was how old? What year was that? I don't know if that was before
20,
or
that was
after. But let me
2011,
Google it.
2012, 2012.
Okay, so then I was 11, 10 or 11. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's so funny. Like I thought that JPE was wearing earphones. Yun pala hearing aid niya. And like it's so funny. Like it's cataloged there perfectly in my loopy handwriting. Like, is he wearing earphones? What's going on? And then literally you could see the moment. It's like, oh my god, he just walked out because he walked out of the drive.
Oh
Like,
my God.
you know,
That
I'm
would
like,
be a
that's
cute
so
book one
funny.
day though. Like just an 11-year
Just the
old's
handwriting.
history. Like
Yeah.
taking note of what was happening in the Senate at that time.
It's really here. Like that notebook is somewhere down here. I'm gonna dig it up. But it's so funny. Like literally, like, oh my god, he just walked out. Underline! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Heart. And it's like, I was reading that and I was like, this is so weird. What kind of
So you were
what?
just hovering around the Senate around that time.
It was either the Senate or ABS-CBN. So it was like it's so weird. So that's why
Every
like when
yeah,
ABS-CBN,
yeah.
right? That it's so weird, and it's like so I would take my scooter and like scooter around ABS-CBN between like the like after school. It
So
was
sumitin
nicer
na
to
ng
be in
mga marshals.
ABS-CBN because it was no, yeah, it was nicer to be in ABS-CBN because I could get McDo and my dad didn't like to feed us. My mom would feed us McDo, but my dad was like, no, that's junk food. So like, but I liked McDo.
So you were
Dad would
handing
get
out
us
free food
Maxes. Yeah,
in the
but it's
Senate.
so funny because it's like that's why it was so weird for me to like when ABS-CBN was shut down. I was like, I was
Right.
like, that's
Like, pwede palang mangyari yun in our lifetime.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing, and it's just like ulit. Like, yun nga, I tweeted nga yata, I think, like, I wasn't aware it was 1972. But this is so much fun, by the way. Like, a lot of the interviews sorry if I'm, like, rambling, but it's like,
No,
I
but
feel like
the
you're a
editing
friend.
team
A lot
will
of
be
the
like,
interviews are like,
oh my God, ang dami nilang sinasabi. Pero problema
I'm
nyo na
so
lang yun.
sorry.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
I'm so
Pero I'm
sorry.
also wondering, yun nga, parang I think because you are very aware of the privilege that you have, the privileged space that you operate in. Parang, how do you, like, without meaning to consciously reach out to the masses, it's not, hindi naman politiko, hindi mo naman concern yun, hindi naman yun
But,
active need on
yeah.
your part. How do you navigate that space? Siguro yun yung tanong, how do you navigate that space na knowing na, okay, this is where parang you were in a sort of bubble, although your parents always managed to pull you out and then bring you out of that bubble.
Yeah.
But how do you navigate that space knowing na parang, okay, this is what I'm saying, this is what's happening, but then you're very self-aware that not everyone has the social capacity, I guess, or the literal financial capacity to be as informed, probably, as you were growing up.
Yeah. It's a weird thing because it's like my privilege allowed me to be educated to this extent, right? It allowed me to be like it in itself. I feel like more of my privilege was that awareness, because without my parents being exactly who they are, I feel like it wouldn't have been grilled into us so deeply, and it wouldn't have been, it's like there's a certain amount of that privilege that made me more aware. It wasn't that I was aware of my privilege, but like in itself, that was a privilege. That's so weird. But I'm sorry.
It makes sense. It makes sense. Okay lang yan.
That's so weird. Yeah. But I was like, di ba nga? It's like, to a certain extent, it's like I'm never gonna be able to teach my own peers about what it feels like to be 11 years old sitting in an impeachment trial, stuff like that.
Taking
Like,
down notes,
that's an education.
Yeah.
That's an education in itself that can't necessarily be replicated, right? To be like that young and like that, like involved in it, and that like immersed in such a political thing and like such political discourse. And it's like, growing up na, I would steal my dad's books when I ran out na. That's another thing. I was a reading addict. I was grounded from reading in grade 5.
What? Your parents had to intervene and tell you to
I have
stop
so
reading?
many weird. Yeah. No, I don't know how they raised me. I'm telling you right now. I have no idea how they raised me. Like, I'm just thinking about it now.
What were you reading, though?
Because as a baby, for example,
I'm
like
sure
as
your
a
dad
baby,
didn't
apparently,
have, like, wala naman siguro
my
siya,
dad,
ano ba?
the first
Babysitter's Club. I don't think he had those books. So, like, what kind of books would you steal from him?
Civil Code of the Philippines, Paras, Volume 1.
You were how old?
At that point, I was siguro 12 now when I got the thick
Oh
one.
my
But then
goodness.
before that, he already gave me copies of like Edgar Hobson. He bought me
Wow.
the Kalayaan encyclopedias, and I consumed those. I literally, because that's the thing, I'm reading addict. I was I can't. So it was that, and then like when he leaves like his transcripts lying around because like no one really, you know what I mean?
The
I'd pick that up and I just read.
You'd read the
I'd
Senate.
pick that up and I literally have copies of the like it got to the point where his office kind of asks me already, do you want a second copy of this? Do you want this? And they'll send it because they know that I'll steal it. Like, it's so funny. And it's like when there's no updated copy, I'll text them and I'll be like, can you email me like the thing? And then they just have me on like the
If
roster.
anyone is watching this and still doubts if you know what you're talking about, for better or worse, this girl reads the transcript, which, by the way, even Senate reporters, because I've covered the Senate several times before, several years back, parang, it's a very good resource, but it's not something that you read for fun, like, it's not like, I'm gonna read like 1,000
but that's the
pages
thing.
of this transcript.
I would really devour that stuff. And I think that because like it was just entertaining to me at first, and then eventually I realized, like now, like recently lang I realized, I was like, that is stuff that you can't learn anywhere. They're not teaching that in school. I learned more from sitting down with my parents for an hour than I've ever had. Like especially this quarantine when they're so much more like open and like the discussion changes every night. I've learned more from my parents than I have for like the rest of my life. Every class that I've been to, nothing compares. It's so funny. And it's like, you know what I mean? And like it's certain things like that, and I was just like, why am I what? Like like
How
it's
did
so
this
weird because
happen? Yeah.
yeah. And then my friends, because my friends international school, diba, for high school and stuff like that. But a lot of them are like in Ateneo and a couple are in UP. Like there's some in LaSalle, and like is I was in New York now. They would still be texting me, Frankie, who are the siblings of Jose Rizal? And it's like, why are you like?
Why don't you know that though?
Yeah, no, they didn't know this stuff because they weren't taught it because they were all there from like grade school, right? And it's like,
Oh,
kaya nga, and it's like
oo
now
nga
lang,
pala.
yeah.
Ibang
So
grade
now
level
lang
ka
they,
pala.
yeah. So that's why it's like now lang they're like finally like learning about it, like and like but thankfully it's like now like you know what I mean, like I don't know why it's like, but they come to me like as a resource, and I kind of get scared because I'm like I'm not an expert on this stuff. But it's like I'll help you out, like
Nasa,
Wikipedia it if it's not correct, and then just like and then like
nasa
I'll just
citation ka
try
pala
to,
ng mga college paper nila, no? Frankie Pangilinan,
yeah.
2020. Yung
It's so funny. And
which
it's
is,
like,
yeah. I mean, you talked about, like just your parents making an effort to also like discuss, deliberate with you, which is a perfect segue to my next question.
ooh.
What's the best lesson, pangaral, or whatever that they've taught you so far?
I don't think it's something they've taught me, but more something that I inherited from them. Because I feel like they've taught me way too much for me to like just give you one thing. You know what I mean? So instead I'll give you like a quality that I guess can't be like replaced. A couple days ago, they were laughing and laughing at the dinner table. They're so funny when they're like, there's such a can I just like my parents are so weird. There's such like they're the perfect like parental tag team, and it's so funny to me because it's like you know what I mean, like that's the thing, it's like sometimes they don't even realize it, and I kind of have to make them like when they have their spats like any couple does,
Yeah,
right? I'm
yeah.
the marriage counselor. I'm the one who like I literally, and before I left for New York, I literally held both their hands and I was just like, I'm going, be good. Like I was like, behave please, because that's the thing in this house, everyone has such a powerful like energy,
Mhm.
and I didn't like and I felt like that was so like I didn't realize how do I put this, I don't want to be naman like like everyone in this house has something to say.
Right.
Everyone is like that's why the number one question that people ask me all the time is, oh, how did your parents react like when you said this thing? And I was like, they didn't, because this is like they just knew, like they
Right.
know I'm like this, you know what I mean? It's like I kind of like they kind of posted recently for Iha Ako because they heard that some people were saying like, oh, your parents should restrain you or something, and then they both were like, no. So they just posted, and I was like,
Right.
but I didn't ask them to. That's just them, and they know them and everything I'm up to. They follow me. It's not like I'm keeping anything secret. And it's like I think that they were laughing. They were laughing and laughing at the dinner table. They were scrolling through my dad's phone, and I was like, "What?" And then suddenly it was my Twitter, and then there was this one tweet. I'm forgetting which one it was. Oh, it was the they chose to silence us before they chose to save us, or something like that. They thought silencing Filipinos was more important than saving Filipinos. I remember that. And I tweeted that, and they were laughing and laughing at it and I was like, why? And my dad was just like, because that's how I think, but that's how your mom would say it. And I was like,
So you are this
so my mom,
perfect mix
weird, yeah.
of the way. Oh
Not
my
naman perfect. Not naman perfect.
Okay,
It's very
okay.
self-destructive sometimes. It's very, very self-destructive. Yeah, because that's the thing. Apparently, my mom says I got how deeply my dad thinks, but I got how deeply my mom feels, and so it's like this. It's like this. It's this intense like spiral where I kind of just want to sit
What's your
down and be like,
sign, if you don't mind me asking?
Sag rising, Sag sun, Leo moon.
Leo moon. That makes sense.
It's very.
Yeah.
I don't.
Explosive
It's
emotion.
very.
Have you ever tweeted something and then pag send mo, and then you see people liking, retweeting, you're like, oh, wait lang. Parang dapat hindi ko tweet yun. Have you ever had that moment na?
I think I just delete tweets. I delete my tweets sometimes, but not because of that. Like
Yeah.
I feel like again, I want my social media to always be a reflection of who I am, like honestly. Because I don't I'm like, what's the point of social media if you're not gonna be you? You
Yeah.
know? I said this also a couple of days ago, and it's so cheesy, but it's like, can we normalize being normal? Like can we
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
diba? It's like everyone else is so curated and everyone else is so like and it's like, but that's not what people. I feel like people nowadays, especially, need more people. Like everyone needs to be more normal online, because that's especially now in quarantine. Like that's where we
Right.
are right now.
Right.
It's like,
Tsaka
unfortunately, that's where we are.
nakakapagod to put on that veneer of
It's so tiring. It's so tiring, and it's like,
whatever.
yeah. And here's the thing, right? It's like, I get it. Like a lot of people can't really handle like the backlash, I guess. Like I completely get that, like self-protection and everything.
Yeah.
But it's like, I have this great, well, not blessing, but I have this skill of ignoring it, I guess, because ever since I was like, the first hate comment I ever saw of myself, and I only remember it because it was really scarring, because it was the first time. I was 7. I was
At
yeah
7? Oh my
at
god.
7.
How
I
did
was
you find
scrolling,
out?
and that's the thing. Because I was just, my sister and I were like googling each other on like YouTube, like as you would do as
Oh
a kid, right? And then
no.
I found me on YouTube, and then I was scrolling down, and someone said that I was the ugliest out of all of my
Oh
sisters.
my god.
Yeah,
At 7.
and I
That's
remember that.
pretty
Yeah,
traumatizing, ah. I mean,
it
kung
really is. That's the
7-year-old
thing.
ka na wala ka namang
Yeah. And so
concept
like
ng
that, I think that really,
self-confidence.
for the longest time I was really insecure, and I was like, what is going on? Because it's like, what is this? Like, because they tell you, right? It's like, my parents were like, because people are watching.
Yeah.
And to me, and I guess in my childhood brain, I was like, well, why are they watching if they don't like me? And it was like, well, why,
Yeah.
And then I realized, because it's not you. But then that's why it's like now. So when people are asking me like, how are you handling this? Like, how are you dealing with this? I'm like, this has been, especially in the last few years, especially ever since I went on social media, it's like every day I get a death threat, or every day I get like a you're ugly, you look like a monkey, or like every day I get like a, you know what I mean, stuff
Right.
like that. And
Right.
it's like, so people don't, like that doesn't really affect me anymore. And I guess that's why I'm able to be so vocal. And
Right.
it's like this weird thing where it's like, I wish I never had to experience that,
Oh,
of
for
course,
sure.
and like,
Oh,
I
for sure.
I don't wish those experiences on anybody, but at the same time, what's done is done, and it's like, here we are.
Yeah.
It's
Feeling ko
like,
rin, that's why a lot of people, not just people your age, even people my age, people older, are also scared, not just to speak up in general, but especially on social media. Kasi it can be so cruel. Like,
yeah, it really can.
I feel like more than the usual, parang it's amplified by parang yung remoteness, like you don't even need to say it out loud,
Yeah,
just type it down, and then you can be
yeah,
anonymous if you
exactly.
want to pa. Pwedeng yung picture mo parang silhouette lang and you can get away with
Mm.
it, right? So, yeah.
It's like people are just so, but that's the thing, right? It's like, especially when it comes to like, I mean, it's Rappler naman, so I can say this without dispute, but like paid trolls and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
like, if you say that publicly, like people are like, we're not paid, and I'm like, well, you are though. Like I'm kind of like, made in June 2020, you kind of are though. It's fine. Like, you know what I mean? I'm kind of like, I'll feed you. I'll feed you. Like I'm like, to me, I kind of feel bad, because I'm like, if you took, especially those people, right? And I know that that's only like a recent thing in the last couple of years that happened, but like, there's a certain amount of like desperation that it must have taken for you to like, for anyone to like be employed like that. It's like, and I kind of just feel bad at the end of the day, but then at the same time, it's like, you want to condemn it, like, like it has to be condemned.
Because it's like it's willful destruction of
Yeah, exactly. It has to be condemned, like no matter what, the like, it's like, it's understandable, but it's not justifiable. That's my favorite thing when it comes to like a lot of problematic stuff.
right.
It's like, even the Ben Tulfo thing, to me, I'm like, that's understandable, but it's not justifiable. You can't,
Right.
like, no.
There's a difference.
Like,
Yeah. But that's good
yeah.
that there is that distinction na hindi porket gets mo kung bakit nangyayari, it doesn't mean that you should accept that it happens. And then it still continues to happen. Bago na kasi ang haba ng discussion din na to. I also want to ask about your music.
Thank you.
Okay, no. Because
This
I
is the first time I've been asked for like the last.
really talaga. So at this point, na overshadow na ng ano, ng
No,
like.
like, that's what I'm saying. Like I've been feeling, okay. Here, this is my like process of reflection recently, right? I was feeling a few weeks ago, I was feeling so down, because I was like, am I now expected to like run for public office? Like, you know what I mean? I was like that's something that I could do. That I was in student council for like many years and stuff, and it's like, but the thing is, I like, one of the biggest life lessons I learned was like in senior year, because in senior year I wasn't in the student council anymore for like and that was like my last year, and I literally like broke, because I realized all of the work that I had been doing from since the start of high school was for other people and it wasn't for me. And I think that to a certain extent, it was like a reminder. I'm very spiritual, so I was like, it was a reminder from like God, na parang, you can't keep running on other people's steam,
Right.
and you can't keep doing something that you don't love to do. Like
Right.
you can't keep doing something. Like I did love doing it, but for other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like I loved doing it because I felt like,
Because you can
people
help
need this.
others. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like people need this, like whatever. But then it kind of like, because it like stopped, I felt like it was like a break, and I was like, okay. And I was really upset for like the longest time. I fell into like this like depressive hole and stuff, and like it was like that for like months and everything. And it's like my anxiety like really skyrocketed, like really. And it's like I got a handle on it, and I feel like that kind of prepared me for 2020, not gonna lie.
I was
Like,
gonna say.
you know what I mean? Because now it's like my friends and I, because my friends and I have been we've been through some like really traumatic stuff. And it's like, when like now in this quarantine, it's like a joke for us. It's like, well, we've been through worse. So, like us personally, we have been through worse. So it's like we're solid, and we're like, it's gonna be fine. Like we're gonna be fine. Like it's gonna. But everyone else is like, the world is like blowing up, and we're just like, we've been prepped for this. This is what we've been prepped for, right? To endure. And so I think that it was like this. It's so funny. I don't know. I think that like, because music and writing is my number one passion. It keeps me up at night.
When
It keeps
did
me up.
you, well, like, I don't, ano ba yun? Is it like, is it a bug na parang you wake up one day, parang, you know what? This is what I want to do. Or was it really like, parang, I don't know, bata ka pa lang, ito na yun eh. Ito na
Okay.
talaga yun eh.
It's like I thought I wanted to be so many things. Like I thought I was never sure until like I was 17. When I was 17, I was like, you're so stupid. Like, how did you not realize this sooner? Because prior to that, it was like, oh, like what if I become like a police officer or something? And then I'd write about it. I'd write, like, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to be an astronaut. So I wrote a story about me being an astronaut. I wrote a story about me going to space. And then I stapled it and I folded it, and I was like, Dad, I wrote a book. And I was like, yes, I wrote a book. We're going to outer space. It was so much fun and stuff like that. And I was, and even since I was what, 5 then. And it's like, my dad still has it in his side table drawer. And it's like, I feel like there's something so like melancholy about that. There's something like weirdly profound. It's like, as a kid, all I wanted to be was an astronaut, because my dad wanted to be an astronaut too. And like we'd put like the remotes and like the like a telephone, we'd unplug the phone, and then we put it on the bed and stuff, and then we'd like tap and like,
Yeah.
like the buttons and stuff, and then he'd go on Google Earth and like zoom out. And I'd be like, whoa, we're in space. And it's like, oh my god, like I wanted to be that. I wanted to be a paleontologist and an archaeologist, and then like all these things, and then I'd write stories about it. And to me, it's like, fundamentally, then that's what I wanted to do. Like I'd write stories, I'd write songs, and I'd be like, and I feel like I owe it, because again, a couple weeks ago, I was really upset because I was like, like, what if public office is it? Like, what if I have to, like, you know what I mean? And then I realized, I was like, Francesca, if you think that like the only way you're gonna make a contribution to this country is through doing something like that, right? Through like literally direct public service, like in office and everything, like through politics. If you think that you have to get involved in that, like just to make like some sort of contribution, like if you're saying that your art is not gonna be worth the same, or if your art is not going to contribute enough, then you're not only invalidating yourself, you're invalidating every other Filipino artist,
For sure.
who works so hard. And also, my favorite thing ever was when I literally woke up in the middle of the night one night, like cold sweat, like because I don't sleep as it is. I kind of just zombie sleep. I kind of just like, and I'm thinking, but I like literally got up and I was like Rizal was a writer, and I just went back to sleep. And I was like, was there Rizal was a writer? So I'm kind of just clinging on to that. Like, I don't know if it'll ever be enough for people, but I'm gonna try my best. And I'm not, it's weird because it's like, it's the one thing that I think like intersects, where it's like I'm doing it for people to make a statement, and I'm really excited for, I might get in trouble for my next album.
Oh, so you're working on an album now?
And it's conceptually, it's quite eerie because I came up with the story before pa. Like I came up with it in New York,
Mhm.
and then when I sent the proposal, and when it was approved, ABS-CBN was shut down, and like it's eerily, there's a parallel there, and I don't want to say too much. But then the thing is like now, because my plan was I was gonna. I don't know how much I should tell you. I'll keep it a surprise,
Yeah.
like as much as possible. But it's like basically conceptually, the concept involves me. It's gonna be very I don't want to say like methods, but it's like it's like my social media might be going through some like a revamp.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like I don't want to like scare people suddenly because people are listening, and I'm scared that they're gonna report my main account and stuff. And it's like, but it was supposed to be a statement, but now I feel like it's gonna be like a scream because of like our current context and our current like and
And the attention the attention
that's why
everyone
I'm
is
so scared,
pouring onto your
Lord.
Twitter.
Yeah, I'm so scared. But the thing is, right, I feel like at the end of the day, the best way to like touch a bunch of people who haven't yet, it's like, you know what I mean? I feel like if you're gonna critique me because and you're like an activist, or like if you're gonna critique me and like I understand that, but at the same time what I'm doing is not to reach you because you're already educated. You know what I mean? It's like what I'm doing is not to reach the people who know more than me. Like I don't I'm not I'm not an expert on anything. I'm not a professional at all this stuff. And it's like when I make my art and things like that, what I'm making is not supposed to reach people who already know their stuff. You know what I mean? It's supposed to reach those who still need kind of I don't know, maybe a little awakening. And so we'll
Perhaps
see how
anything as
feasible it is.
exposed as you
Yeah,
have
but
been.
I'll release a few. Yeah, I'm gonna release a few casual songs muna, because
But-
obviously I feel like it's really hard to like to do a project right now in
yeah.
lockdown. But yeah,
What is it about music though that kasi parang the way yung pagkakwento mo, it's as if it was always there in the background. You didn't really pay
yeah.
attention to songwriting.
Um,
But
no, songwriting I think was I love to sing, and I think that like, but I was always scared for majority of the time because like when I was 12, my voice started getting really deep. Hi, I'm yeah, this is my voice, and so it's like, and to this day, like people still try to attack me for it, and I think that
really, do
sometimes it's
people think that
oh no,
you
100%.
bring your voice down para lang?
I don't bring my voice down. No, I don't think they think that. I think that no, there were some really inappropriate comments once. I don't know if you'll want to put this in the article. I think it's like kind of like immaterial, but there were like some really inappropriate comments once on like this YouTube video where they were asking, "Am I transgender or am I gay?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, number one, that doesn't matter. Like
Right.
even if I was,
Right.
like that doesn't matter." But it was like clearly meant as like a joke. You know what I mean? Like there
Yeah.
were like laughing emojis and stuff, and I was like, "That's just inappropriate. Like that's not
The
okay."
wrong punchline.
And no, yeah, and like you know what I mean? Like for what it's no, it's not worth anything. Literally, I could be transgender, and like you shouldn't care. Like you know what I mean? But I mean, I think everyone knows I'm a cisgender heterosexual woman. Like like again, baby
They
uod,
they saw,
it's a girl.
I was gonna say they saw you as an award, so
That's
dapat
what I'm
hindi
saying,
na.
and I'm just like, diba? And it's like it's so weird. I'm like what? Like why is that? But like like because they like making fun of my voice because it's not a Biritera voice. You know what I mean? It's like and stuff like that. And I was so upset over it when I was like 12, 13 because I was like, I really want to be a singer, but then how am I going to be a singer in the Philippines where everyone has to be a Biritera to be considered good? You know? And then but then I listened to Amy Winehouse. I listened to and like all of my favorite like jazz artists. Nina Simone. Apparently, I was named after Nina Simone in some part, and I'm so proud of that. She's so cool. She's so cool. Yeah. Please read up on her if you haven't. She's
That's where
so
Simone
awesome.
comes from.
Yeah, it's there, and like I think my mom just also there was like another I know, but like yeah, Nina Simone is like one of them and stuff, and like her voice is a lot deeper than mine, and so for me it
yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. So for me, it's just kind of like, well, I guess that means I have something different, to offer at least. If not good, then at least it's different. Like I don't know how to, but like as a kid, so that was something I had to overcome, muna,
Yeah.
I think, and I didn't really overcome it till I was like 15ish.
Was there or is there pressure for you because your mom is who your mom is? Na alam mo yun, parang either na alam mo kailangan maging singer ka or kailangan mag-artista ka. Just because.
I think weirdly enough, I think there's more pressure for me to get involved now in like politics and stuff. Now, like weirdly enough, that's where more of the pressure is. Because for me, it's like I think that it was never pressure for me to like become an artista because I knew that I didn't want to do it that way anyway. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like, yeah, and like, you know what I mean? Like, I chose my label, my current music label, they're an indie label. I chose it for the freedom, very specifically because I didn't want things to be like curated, and I didn't want, I want to make different stuff, you know? I want to make something that's more, that might not necessarily, unfortunately, be like palatable to a lot, but it's like, it gave me creative freedom at the expense of like, you know, the budget and the everything like that. But the creative freedom was a lot more valuable to me. And I think that like, you know, again, it's like everything that I want, everything that I do, I want it to forever be done with integrity. And I think that, you know, and that's why I changed, like a lot of people were asking me like, well, why do you go by Kaki now? Like, why is all your music under Kaki? Okay. Because when I was 2, I couldn't say Frankie. I kept saying Fwanky, but I thought that it sounded so stupid. So I just called myself Kaki. And I was like, well, if I called myself Kaki at 2, then that's me, you know? And I was like, that's fundamentally me. And it's, and you know what I mean? And it's like, I specifically chose that as the music thing because I didn't want people to like search up Sharon Cuneta's daughter or like, you know, stuff like that. It's like, and it's so funny because now like there are people now apparently who didn't even know who I was in my parents' context. Like there's a couple, just a couple like comments and stuff like that I saw. And I was like, well, that was the goal, right? Because I didn't want anyone, it's like wherever my music gets, wherever my art gets, I want to be, I want to make sure that I worked for it as hard as I could.
Yeah.
And that's like 90, like, you know what I mean? I know that it will always be there. Like the privilege of having had that position and that background will always be there. But as much as possible, I want it to be like the work that I did. Like any success that my work has, if any at all, I want it to be
interesting parang problem that a lot of children of like icons in the Philippine entertainment industry, like the music industry have. Parang you have the advantage of, you have the privilege of, you know, your mom being your mom, people might listen to you a little faster as opposed to if you were like a random person lang. Pero bit mo yung pangalan ng mom mo even if you don't want to. Alam mo yun, parang people will obviously parang
I think it's like easier to be heard, but it's not necessarily easier to be listened to.
Right.
It's like
like you get your attention,
like,
but
no
they
matter
might
what,
not be paying attention to what you're saying.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people. It's really ironic now because I posted this video a while back. I archived it now just because it was like getting on my nerves. Because occasionally the trolls, like, it's so weird to me because they'll come on like that's the thing, and that's how I know that they're paid because it's so unnatural. They'll come in like hordes on like a specific day.
Yeah,
and like on like a specific
period.
Exactly. Like I'll just wake up suddenly and there's like 1,000 comments, and it's like I wasn't even getting that. Like, you know what I mean? And it's on old posts. It's like on posts from like months ago. And so I'm like, that's why I know. I'm like, that's not human. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like you all decided to collectively stalk me and then just have like a bashing
just so
party.
Happened to pick the same post.
Exactly. And that's why. So like I archived that post, Muna. But it's so ironic because in that post I wrote a song and then it was basically like, will I ever be enough? And like all of the captions, all of the comments were like, ang pangit ng boses mo. And like stuff like that. And I was just like, well, y'all didn't care when I posted it. Like, you know, it's like,
that's so strange. It's so strange na parang your music, whether you mean to or not, parang now overlaps with, I don't know if you're comfortable with me calling it your activism, or perhaps what you see lang, diba? Parang although I guess it's inevitable din naman for art to overlap with activism. Like it's not, it's difficult to split the two.
And that's the thing. I think I'm always going to use both.